My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 29, and I never expected my parents would ruin my credit to buy my sister a wedding she couldn't afford. If you've ever felt overlooked or betrayed by your own family, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Like this video and subscribe for more stories like this. I had always been the responsible one, the first to graduate college, the first to hold down a job, and the only one who never moved back in with our parents. My younger sister Danielle had different priorities: impulsive, dreamy, always falling in and out of love. My parents called her the sensitive one, which somehow became an excuse for everything. She could max out her credit cards, forget job interviews, and still get praised for trying her best. Meanwhile, I could wire them money for groceries, cover a last-minute bill, and the best I'd get was a "thanks, honey," in passing. I had a steady job in commercial real estate. Nothing flashy, but stable. Commission-based, sure, but I worked for everything I earned. And when I say I supported them, I don't mean birthday gifts or dinner checks. I mean, I paid their mortgage for a year after Dad got laid off. I refinanced my own car to help them consolidate credit card debt. And when Danielle wanted to go back to school just to try something new, guess who co-signed the loan? But nothing, not a single ounce of that, prepared me for what I found when I got denied for a mortgage on my first home. The bank officer flipped through my file with a confused frown. "You already have an open loan. $32,000 taken out last year through First Continental?" I blinked. I've never even heard of that bank. But the records were there. My name, my social, my signature. Except it wasn't my signature. It was forged. The loan had been processed online, approved, and almost entirely spent. Where did it go? To a personal wedding fund under Danielle's name. I sat there, hands trembling, while the bank officer asked if I'd like to start a fraud investigation. But I already knew who had done it. My sister couldn't have pulled that off without help. It had to be my parents. When I confronted them, I didn't even yell. I just asked one question: why? My mom looked offended, like I'd asked if she'd stolen from a stranger. We just needed some help. Danielle's wedding was important. She's finally settling down. "You could have asked me." Dad cut in, shrugging. "You're always working. We thought you wouldn't mind. You've got more than enough." I stood there in their kitchen, surrounded by photos of Danielle's engagement shoot, and realized something permanent had shifted. It wasn't just betrayal. It was entitlement. They didn't even think what they did was wrong. Danielle walked in minutes later, holding an iced coffee. She paused, saw the tension, and rolled her eyes. "It's not a big deal, Claire. You always act like money is more important than family." I turned and walked out without another word. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment everything changed. I wish I could say this was the first time they chose Danielle over me, but really it was the last straw in a lifetime of smaller betrayals. I still remember my 9th birthday. I had one friend over, a cake my mom made, and balloons from the dollar store. Halfway through opening gifts, Danielle, only 5 at the time, threw a tantrum because she wanted to blow out the candles. My dad scooped her up and said, "Let's do another one just for you, sweetheart." They relit the candles. She blew them out. The photo that made it to the family album wasn't of me holding my cake. It was Danielle, beaming, chocolate icing smeared on her cheek. That moment set the tone. In school, I worked hard. Perfect attendance, honor roll, student council. But it was Danielle's middle school poetry day performance that got a framed picture in the hallway. They said I was too independent, too serious, that Danielle needed more emotional support. When I got accepted into NYU on a partial scholarship, they told me they couldn't afford the rest, so I went to a state school. Danielle, meanwhile, got a break from school to explore art in Portland for a year. On their dime, I called every week. They never picked up. But when Danielle posted a new haircut or a photo of her thrifted boots, they gushed in the group chat. When I confronted them, they'd say I was too sensitive or making everything about me. Even as adults, I became the fixer. Danielle got engaged to a guy she'd known for 6 months, Jason, a trust fund musician who wasn't into capitalism. They wanted a wedding with a garden ceremony and vintage French chairs. When Jason's parents backed out of pain, guess who stepped in? Me. I wired them $2,500 to hold the venue, told them it was the last time. It wasn't. I covered the florist. I designed the invitations. I paid the non-refundable deposit for a mobile vegan gelato truck, not because I believed in the marriage, but because every time I said no, my parents would call me cold. Your sister's only getting married once, Mom said. She's going through a lot emotionally, Dad added. Through it all, I tried to convince myself it didn't matter, that I was building a future, that one day I'd buy my own home, live without chaos, and finally stop feeling like a backup generator. But deep down, I was exhausted. Not just financially, emotionally. There was one night I'll never forget. My grandmother passed away, and I flew in from a work trip to attend the funeral. At the service, everyone greeted Danielle first. They asked how she was coping. No one asked me. I sat alone in the second row, hands folded, watching my parents huddle around her like she'd lost more. Later that night, I overheard my mom on the phone. "She's strong," she whispered. "Claire's always been fine. It's Danielle I worry about." That's when it hit me. They didn't just overlook me. They needed me to be invisible so Danielle could shine. And I played my part. For years, until they used my name to take out a loan and never even said sorry. That night, after I walked out of their house, I sat in my car until the sun came up. No crying, no yelling, just silence. Then I pulled out my laptop, opened a private browser window, and typed 3 words: legal action fraud. I didn't tell them right away that I was pursuing legal action. At first, I just needed to know I wasn't crazy. That what they did, wasn't something I had to swallow and move past like every other slight. The financial advisor I hired didn't flinch. He looked through the forged documents, checked the timestamps and digital signatures, and nodded once. "This is identity theft," he said. "And if it was your family who did this, it's prosecutable." Prosecutable. The word echoed in my head like a threat. Not to them, but to the version of me that still wanted to protect them. I gave myself one last chance to believe in reconciliation. One final conversation. One chance for someone to say, "You're right, we went too far." So I invited them to dinner. Neutral ground. A quiet little restaurant, candlelit, the kind with leather booths and soft jazz humming in the background. They showed up late. Danielle wore a white turtleneck and a smug little smile. My dad gave me a side hug like nothing was wrong. Mom just looked irritated, like I'd interrupted something important. I laid it all out. I told them I knew about the forged loan, that I had the documents, that I was speaking to legal counsel. And they laughed. Not nervously, not awkwardly, but genuinely, like I'd told a ridiculous joke. Danielle snorted into her wine. "Oh my God, Claire, you're being so dramatic." My mom tilted her head. "You're not seriously going to ruin our family over money?" Dad folded his arms. "You always did like to act like the victim. You think we haven't sacrificed for you?" I froze. They were turning it around. Again, making me the problem. Like I hadn't carried their debts, their burdens, their dreams on my back. For a decade, I pushed the papers across the table. The forged signature, the bank statements, screenshots, printouts, a whole folder. My hands didn't even shake. Danielle rolled her eyes. "Okay, so what? You've got your little evidence folder. Do you want an apology?" "Fine, I'm sorry." But it wasn't an apology. It was a performance. That's when I knew they were never going to see me. Not as a daughter, not as a person, only as a resource. A vault. A contingency plan. I stood up, left the folder on the table, and walked out. No shouting, no parting words, just the sound of my heels on tile and the rustle of my coat. They didn't follow. They didn't call. Not that night, not the next day. The silence that followed wasn't cold. It was clean, like the first breath after a storm. And that's when I made my decision. I wasn't just going to file a report. I was going to rebuild everything they tried to ruin. On my terms. The fraud investigation took months. I filed the reports, sent over every document, and answered every uncomfortable question. Yes, it was my family. Yes, I wanted to press charges if necessary. But that wasn't my end game. It wasn't about jail time. It was about freedom, financial and emotional. While the legal wheels turned, I poured my energy into something bigger. I'd been a top producing agent in commercial real estate for years, but I'd never taken the leap, never trusted myself enough to build something of my own. Now I had clarity like a blade. I partnered with a quiet investor. I'd once helped land a retail strip. He'd always said, if you ever want to build something, I'm in. So I called. We created a holding company and started looking at acquisition targets, banks, small, local, underperforming banks. The kind of places that First Continental would have once called competitors. It wasn't revenge. Not exactly. It was correction, a redirection of power. 6 months later, we finalized the purchase of a mid-sized community bank, one with clean books, loyal clients, and potential to expand. The bank that had first flagged the fraudulent loan? It was now part of our portfolio. On paper, I wasn't the majority owner, but behind every major decision, hiring, branding, compliance, I was the voice. I knew what mattered to borrowers. I knew what it felt like to be overlooked, underestimated, and stolen from. We didn't announce it publicly. There were no press releases or ribbon cuttings, but the rebranding was swift. New ethics code, new security protocols, new regional manager, me, and that $32,000 loan? Wiped. But not before I had the satisfaction of officially declining my sister's request to restructure the debt. She applied under her name this time, after realizing payments were due. She said she couldn't afford the monthly minimums, said it wasn't fair, the system flagged it. Her profile came across my desk. She had no idea I'd be the one to see it. I sent back one line. Loan request denied due to prior account misuse. They didn't connect the dots right away. But eventually, word spread that Claire was running things now. Not just her own life, but a piece of the system they used to manipulate. And for the first time in my life, no one could tell me I was being too sensitive or too dramatic. There was nothing left to argue. I'd taken back what they tried to take from me, times 10, not with rage, not with threats, but with power they never saw coming. I didn't block their numbers. I didn't have to. They stopped calling on their own. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to check in, didn't feel guilty for not sending birthday cards or emergency transfers, didn't pace in front of my phone waiting for thank yous that would never come. I let the silence stretch. It didn't hurt like I thought it would. It felt clean. But the real shift happened inside me. I stopped second-guessing every decision, stopped shrinking to make room for Danielle's crises, stopped pretending my strength meant I didn't need support. I hired a therapist, a real one, not a podcast or self-help blog. And in those quiet sessions, I unpacked everything. The birthdays spent alone, the way my success was seen as arrogance, the way my stability became their excuse to take. My therapist said something that stuck with me. You've been parentified, Claire. They never saw you as a child, only a safety net. I didn't cry. I nodded. Because I knew, but knowing gave me the power to change it. I started saying yes to small things, weekend trips, painting classes, dinners with friends, things I used to skip because Danielle needs help again or mom's overwhelmed. I bought a townhouse in the city, my name, my money, no co-signers, no borrowed time. I decorated it exactly how I wanted. Clean lines, warm light, bookshelves, a deep blue armchair by the window where I drank coffee every morning in peace. One afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Jason, Danielle's now ex-husband. He'd heard what happened, said he was sorry. She blames you, he said quietly, for everything falling apart, for the debt, for the fact that no one's bailing her out anymore. I thanked him, not for calling, but for the confirmation. I wasn't imagining it. They had relied on me so long they forgot I had limits, and now that I'd stopped carrying them, they were falling. But it wasn't my job to catch them. Not anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter, just done. And that, somehow, was more powerful than anything I'd ever felt. It took almost a year. Then, the texts started. First, from my mom. No apology. Just, "Can we talk? Things are hard right now." Then, from Danielle. "I know we've had issues, but I really need help." I didn't respond. I waited. Because I knew the next message would come from my father. And it did. He called, left a voicemail. His voice was quiet, tired, maybe even ashamed. "Claire, we didn't know it would go this far. We thought you'd be okay. You always are. We miss you." I listened to it once, then deleted it. Missing me wasn't the same as loving me. Needing me wasn't the same as valuing me. They missed the utility I once was, not the woman I had become. Danielle's situation unraveled quickly. Divorced, out of work, credit score in ruins. She'd reached out to mutual friends asking if I'd forgive and forget. Said she wanted a fresh start. I did forgive her. But forgetting? That would require me to pretend none of it happened, to lie to myself just to keep the peace. And peace built on lies isn't peace. It's just delay. I saw them once, by accident, at a coffee shop near my office. They didn't notice me. Danielle sat at the corner table, crying into her drink while my parents hovered like they always did. They still saw her as fragile, still believed I didn't need anything. But I did. I needed distance, clarity, and finally, I had both. A week later, I got a formal letter, handwritten, from my mother. She said they were sorry, said they didn't know how much I had done until it was gone, that they just wanted their family back. It ended with, "We'll always be here if you want to come home." I didn't write back. Because I was home, and for the first time, it was a place where no one took from me. It's funny how quiet healing can be. No applause. No big finale. Just soft mornings, clear boundaries, and the knowledge that I owe nothing to people who never saw me. I still walk past the bank sometimes, the one we bought. My name's not on the sign, but the staff knows. The policies reflect my values. Every client file is protected. Every application is reviewed with care. Because I know what it means to be betrayed by the people who should have protected you. My story isn't a revenge fantasy. It's a real one, built on hard lessons, firm decisions, and the courage to walk away. Danielle still hasn't recovered. She blames me for changing. But I didn't change. I just stopped shrinking. My parents? They're quiet now. No more group chats. No more guilt trips. I hear from a cousin occasionally. They say my mom still sets a plate for me at Christmas, but I haven't gone back. And I won't. Because peace, for me, isn't pretending nothing happened. It's building a life so full of meaning that I no longer need them to understand. I mentor young women now, especially those in finance. We talk about boundaries, leverage, and legacy, not just dollars, but dignity. And every time I sit across from one of them, I remind her of this. You don't have to burn bridges, but you're allowed to cross them, close the gate, and build something beautiful on the other side. I didn't buy the bank to prove anything to my family. I did it because I could, because I earned it, because power, used quietly and precisely, is louder than any apology you'll never get. Have you ever had to walk away from people you once called family? Drop your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your power. Send this to someone who needs to know they're not alone.